YouTube, what's going on? I wanted to make a video this week for the mid-bald fade with brush waves on top. It's a very popular cut, especially in the summer for kids. So I'm taking my one guard lever all the way closed with my magic clips and cutting the top down. Making sure I'm going with the grain. On the crown area, I open the lever all the way up and I just see how low that's cutting it, and I close the lever, adjust it as I need to. And now with my bulk removal and sensitive area liners, I'm starting my bald fade. I don't use my sharpest liners because I don't want to irritate his skin, but also that line is very unforgiving. It'll be hard to get out and sometimes could have you pushing the blend up higher and higher. So now what I did to one side, I do to the other, and I'm using reference points. How high is it above each ear? From the front view, is it even across? And then from the back view, I make sure that it's dropping at the same type of angle and speed. Second area, I have my half guard on, lever all the way closed. It's about 1 inch in width, about 1.25 inches in the back. The back of the head is longer, so you can have larger areas there, and it gives you the same consistency of a blend as you get on the side. Above that half guard area, I'm going to put on my 1.5 guard, and I'm going to close the lever all the way. And it's barely cutting anything, but I'm just going through the motions in my areas as I normally do. Taking care of the other side. And now I have my 1 guard on, lever all the way closed. I'm going to go about 1/2 inch above that 1.5 guard line. And then I'll open it up all the way. I'll go about 3/4 of the way into that 1.5 guard area. You're still going to see a faint line of demarcation where the half guard meets the 1.5 guard area. We're going to come back with the half guard and get that out shortly. So here I am, I close the lever back down again, and I'm going about 1/4 of an inch above that line of the 1.5 guard area. Now I opened up the lever. I'm just making sure that that is connecting all the way into that top. Then I might close it halfway and go back. You have to play with the lever sometimes. All right, lever all the way closed again on my 1 guard, 1/4 inch above the 1.5 guard area. And you'll see I'll do like 4-inch wide sections at a time usually, and make my adjustments, cycle through all my positions, and then move on to the next 4 inches. And you see it just about has the half guard blended into the 1.5 guard, just using my 1 guard. And just making sure that it's blending into the top and the back here. Always repositioning the hairs with my comb. Now I'll put my half guard on with the lever halfway open. I'm going to go just above that line of the 1.5 guard area. And you may see a faint line of demarcation underneath it still. So you close the lever a little bit, not all the way, but just maybe to the 1/4 of the way open. And that should completely erase the line between the half guard and your 1.5 guard area. So I'll just be doing the same thing every 4-inch wide area. I'll start off with the lever halfway closed on my half guard. Go just above that line of demarcation. Close it down to about the 1/4 of the way open. And get that line completely out. Cutting kids' hair, you're not always going to be able to give them the most detailed haircut, but do your best. Do your best to keep them calm. Don't work them up. Correct them when you need to, not every single time they're doing something wrong. You'll notice this kid's talking and moving and all types of stuff throughout this haircut, but he's just a young kid, so you got to be somewhat understanding. As long as they allow you to still complete a nice haircut on them, then I wouldn't worry about it. Also, if you don't like cutting kids, raise the price on them. That way when they do come, it's worth your while. Some people will guilt trip you and say, oh, I can't believe you're charging kids that much. Like you're the only barber in town. Like, yeah, man, go to a barber who don't charge as much as me. Don't ever let people guilt you into charging less than what you think you're putting in. Okay, now I have no guard on. I have the lever about 3/4 of the way open. And I go about 3/4 of the way into that half guard area. I close the lever to about quarter to halfway open. And then I go up into that area about a quarter to halfway mark. Then I'll close my lever all the way. And I'll completely remove that line. Now moving on to my next 4-inch section. Cycling through those same lever positions. So you start off with it 3/4 of the way, in between 3/4 and halfway open. And you go about in between 3/4 and halfway into the area. Then you close it down to about in between a quarter and a halfway mark of the lever position. And you go about a quarter or halfway into that area. Then you close the lever all the way, and that you stay right on the line and it will remove it. And those lever positions aren't set in stone. You could find out what works best for you. Just use this system here as a reference, something to go off of, and adjust it as you see fit. Some clients, you may have to adjust it. You may see that their hair cuts differently, so you got to change up the order. But when you're first starting off, it's best to stick to the same blending order. Cycling through your lever positions and going through the areas the same exact way every time is going to allow you to speed up. You're going to get faster because you're doing the same exact thing all the time. It's going to help you to start seeing the blend better. You start seeing if you're making it blend too fast, if it's too drastic of a blend and it's leaving demarcation lines or just weight lines. Everyone's got their own style. I see a lot of people, they got short blending styles to where, to me, it almost looks like a chili bowl. But it seems like everybody loves them. So you got to go off the area you're from, what's acceptable where you're at. Okay, so you can see I brought the blend around the back. And I'm having trouble getting this bottom line out. I've closed my lever all the way. And I'm trying to get it out and it ain't working. So I'm going to stand up my clippers like this here. These blades are 0 gap, so I have to be careful not to irritate or whelp up the skin when I do this. It's the same concept as using your liners when you stand them up like that to really cut the hair close. Same thing with these. It's just a bigger and more powerful blade. So again, just be careful when you're doing that you're not whelping anybody up. Here we go. He's starting to nod on me. So you always got to keep one hand on the client or on his shoulder, whether it's on his shoulder or his head. Just make sure they ain't falling out of the chair. If you ever turn away to go to your station and the kid's sleeping, keep your hand on his shoulder. You don't want no kid tumbling out of your chair, man. That could leave him hurt and a whole bunch of problems for you. Okay, now that I completed the majority of the blend, I'm going to brush the hair down with a hard bristle brush. Holding his forehead, switching hands. Now, I charge $55 for a kid's cut. I pretty much do everything I do on an adult's cut or a teenager, but I don't use the do-rag. So I sprayed some leave-in conditioner on them. And I also put some wave gel in there. And now I'm using my blow dryer and brushing with a soft bristle brush, just drying it in place. Normally on an adult, I would use a do-rag for that process to really lay it down better, but his hair cut pretty low with that 1 guard close on top, so it's laying down good. Take a neck strip with 91% alcohol and you strip all the oil and product and dead skin off of the lineup. I then spray the lineup with holding spray and brush it in. Make sure that it's all the way in the hair and all the way down to the scalp. While that's drying, I shape the top up. I hit all the strays that are coming off of the hairs. Now I look from the front and I seen that the place that I could get the solid line on the side that's the furthest back, I angle it the same way on both sides. So I look at the way that that angle intersects his eyebrow and eye. This kid has a small forehead. You don't want to make it too narrow because it looks weird. So the reference point, you want the temple line to be slightly angled, because if it's kind of straight up, when he looks at it from the front view, it's going to look like they're leaning forward. So you always got to angle them slightly back. but you want them to intersect the middle of the eyebrow. Anywhere from the middle of it to the end of the eyebrow is ideal for a lineup. Obviously, when people get older, it's way further back than that. I know mine is. And I gotta line up kids with no foreheads all day. They're lucky I ain't a hater. Nah, but again, it's important that we ain't pushing these kids back more than needed. I didn't push his temple lines back further than I needed to, and I definitely kept it more natural in the front as well. Some people may have brought his corners up a little bit higher. It may look more rounded than they like, but this kid has a unique shaped skull. You'll notice on his temple areas here, his muscle from his jaw, it protrudes a lot in his temple. So that affects the blend. You'll see a dark mark right there next to the temple line, and then a light mark right where when he bites down, you see his muscle protrude out of the side of his head. Same thing happens when people chew gum. But we'll compensate for that later. Just making sure that this line is perfect. I put the comb in the middle of his head. Sometimes it helps to separate the two sides. Makes flaws jump out. But I always start in the middle of the line, and then I go towards the highest side, and then I match the other side to that. And then I look at the haircut from the front, and I see which C-cup area needs to be the highest to get a strong line. And then I match the other side to that as well. Now I'm going to check out these different funny dark spots he's got here. Haircutting is a game of angles and lighting. You got to always turn them in different angles, always look at it different ways. The front view helps. This front view here helps a lot with looking at your blends. You'll be looking at it from the side. It looks perfect. You turn them like this, there's a blatant line in it. Happens to me all the time. And remember, we kind of just ran through the areas when we started. And that's what you're supposed to do. You want to kind of get fast at that, consistently faster. And then you come back in after you've laid the hair down and lined it, and you begin to fine tune it. Because the blend usually changes once you apply products and you lay the hair down. It'll create some dark spots, or some light spots might stand out even more after you've done it. So again, finish work is where you're going to be putting in the most work. In those beginning areas, you're going to kind of want to run through. When I'm looking at my haircuts through my camera, I tend to do my best work. I think in this day and age, if you're a barber, you should always show what you're doing at the shop. You should always be advertising. It's free advertisement. We used to have to pay to get people to hear our names. You could do it for free. If you feel like your skills aren't there all the way, then showcase something else. If you're funny, showcase that. If girls like you, have a bunch of girls active on your page and stuff. But try not to be too ratchet. But you have to see what gets you attention that doesn't compromise who you are, and you got to run with that. So they say you either got to be able to cut hair or have a personality. When I first started cutting, I'm like, damn, I got the personality of a rock. So I'm like, I better be fucking good at this. So that's why I always focused on detail, even back in 2008 when everyone was, the person that made the most was the fastest, most popular barber. It wasn't the guy that did the best haircut. It was the guy that could crank out more haircuts and have the most people in the shop. So it's more of a popularity contest. I just didn't think that that was right, that they all had to do side hustles or have other jobs in order to make it, or else they had to date someone that made a lot of money and live off them. So I'm happy that I've been around long enough in the barber community to see it go from, it wasn't respected really, it was looked at as a hustle, and now it's a career. More and more young kids are telling me they want to become a barber. I think it's cool. I didn't get a haircut at a barber shop when I was a kid. I got cut on the kitchen table. Then I started cutting my own shit one length. Super low with no lineup. All right, he's waking back up for me at the end of his haircut, so that's good. I'll be able to really finish it off how I want to. So I applied a shave solution, and with a fresh razor blade, of course. That handle is something that doesn't get cleaned as much as it should. When you're done with it after a client, it should be wiped off with alcohol or water or something and then disinfected. You could even soak it in the Marvicide jar with your combs. Look, it's a choice on how much you clean, but there are repercussions. You could be known as the guy giving everybody ringworm, or just, oh, he's dirty, oh, I got bumps. You'll get blamed for everything. If you do everything right, the way that you're taught or the way that you learn, you never got to worry about, you never got to look over your shoulder in this business. I just personally don't try to screw nobody over. I want to make money cutting hair. I don't want them to no show or be late and I got to charge them, because then that causes confusion and it could be a falling out that happens. So I just want to cut hair for money and deserve and earn everything that I make. I think that finessing lifestyle is for weak men, but that's another story. Okay, so I razor lined them and removed the solution with a hot towel. And I sprayed them with a 50-50 alcohol and witch hazel mix. I put powder on a washcloth, dust off his hairline, removing any hair and kind of drying it out some, brush it over, dries it out more. Now I applied a pomade, just making sure it's even all over his hair before I brush it with a soft bristle brush. I tend to follow it with my hand to really ensure that the hairs are laying down. Again, I'm not using a do-rag, but this still is doing the trick for this kid. Look at that line, that's natural. So after I did the pomade, of course, a few strays come over the line. I'm grabbing my sharpest set of liners and taking care of them. It's important that you work on your touch. You can't be super rough. You can't be whelping everybody up every time they come. Things happen from time to time, but you got to make sure that you're very conscious of how hard you're pressing and how their skin is responding to each set of clippers you have. All right, just for the video purposes and because I'm extra, we're going to apply some water-resistant enhancement to his lineup. So I usually do the temple lines and C-cups first on both sides. When cutting kids' hair and some adults, you're going to have to always remind them to stop raising their eyebrow when you're trying to do something. As you know, that alters the whole way that the lineup looks, and it'll only look right when they're raising her eyebrow. All right, now I never try to go too heavy with the enhancement. We're trying to give an illusion that his hair is naturally that sharp. So after doing the temple lines and the C-cups, it really makes flaws stand out on that front line. I didn't show it, but I ran back over it with the liners to really make sure it was perfect before I lock in this line with the enhancement. And you see, he's just always making different faces. It can be very challenging cutting a kid. Because again, you want to cut it so that it looks good when his face is relaxed. When his mom checks it over, he ain't about to be making that face. Most people wouldn't do all this for a kid's cut, but I ain't most people. And I think that's a big part of my schedule, always being full. I'm not afraid to give more than what I'm being paid for. I know it's going to pay off in the end once I get good at it. So I incorporate new things into my services for free all the time, and I get better at them. Once I feel like I mastered them, then you could up your price, and it's all worthwhile, and you're not playing nobody. So after that barber pencil, I use tan in color. You don't want to use white on brown skin. It'll look crazy. So I put hair oil on his head. I kind of wipe it over. I smear it over with my fingers over that barber pencil, and it kind of smears it away, but it's still there a little bit, so I use my wash rag, then comb the hairs over, hit it with my sharpest liners one more time. You always want to finish with a comb. This pulls all the hairs over. And by going over the line this much, he'll be able to comb his hair, wash his hair. It's going to be sharp regardless. All hairs are going to fall to the place they're supposed to. Look at that. Now that's perfect. Even with that temple area bulging out when he chews, it still looks good. We're not cutting flat surfaces, so you have to compensate with different techniques. And be very careful when you're using a razor. I always keep my hand on them, and I'm always gauging if they're about to move, how they've been acting. You got to know your client. You got to know the kid. Don't use a razor on kids early in your career. Hold off on that. Plus, everyone's skin can't tolerate razors. I skipped the foil shaver on his bald fade because it just wasn't needed. Zooming in on it. Hey, if there's anything you want me to do different in the videos, you feel like it might help you, or if you got a specific service you want to see done, let me know in the comments. I'm all about giving everybody what they want to see. That's what I'm doing this for. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel now so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching.